St. Maximus the Confessor, 1st century on Theology, centuries 11 through 20. No deiform soul is in its essence of greater value than any other deiform soul. For when God in his supernal goodness creates each soul in his own image, he brings it into being endowed with self-determination. By exercising this freedom of choice, each soul either reaffirms its true nobility or, through its actions, deliberately embraces what is ignoble. God, it is said, is the sun of righteousness, and the rays of his supernal goodness shine down on all men alike. The soul is wax if it cleaves to God, but clay if it cleaves to matter, which it does depend on its own will and purpose. Clay hardens in the sun, while wax grows soft. Similarly, every soul that, despite God's admonitions, deliberately cleaves to the material world, hardens like clay and drives itself to destruction, just as Pharaoh did. But every soul that cleaves to God is softened like wax and receives the impress and the stamp of divine realities. It becomes, in spirit, the dwelling place of God. If a person's intellect is illumined with the intellections of the divine, if his speech is unceasingly devoted to the singing of the praises of the Creator, and if his senses are hallowed, unsullied by images, he has enhanced that sanctity which is by nature as created in the image of God by adding it to the sanctity of the divine likeness that is attained through the exercise of his own free will. A man keeps his soul undefiled before God if he compels his mind to meditate only on God and his supreme goodness, and makes his thought a true interpreter and exponent of this goodness, and teaches his senses to form holy images of the visible world and all things in it, and to convey the soul in the magnificence of the inner principles lying within all things. God has freed us from bitter slavery to the tyrannical demons and has given humility as a compassionate yoke of devoutness. It is humility which tames every demonic power, produces in those who accept it every kind of sanctity, and keeps that sanctity inviolate. He who believes fears. He who fears is humble. He who is humble becomes gentle and renders inactive those impulses of inconveniences and desire which are contrary to nature. A person who is gentle keeps the commandments. He keeps the commandments, is purified. He who is purified is illumined. He who is illumined is made consort of the divine bridegroom and Logos in the shrine of the mysteries. Sometimes when a farmer is looking for a suitable spot to which to transport a tree, he unexpectedly comes across a treasure. Something similar may happen to a seeker after God. If he is humble and unaffected in his soul, an example of the blessed Jacob is sleek and not hirsute with materiality, then God may grant him the contemplation of divine wisdom, even though he has not labored for it. But if the Father then asks him how he came about this knowledge, saying to him, "What is this you have found so quickly, my son?" he should reply as Jacob did, "It is the Lord that has granted me." We should realize that in such case, what he has found is a spiritual treasure. For the devoted seek after God is a spiritual farmer who transplants, as if the tree, his contemplation of visible and sensory things, to the field of the noetic realities. And in so doing, he finds a treasure, the revelation by grace of the wisdom in created things. Although in his humility he has not expected it, the seeker after God may suddenly receive spiritual knowledge of the divine contemplation. But this may so devastate the mind of someone who is unsuccessfully toiling to acquire such knowledge for the sake of self-display that, mad with jealousy, he plots to murder his brother and grows sick with resentment because he does not experience the elation that comes from being praised. Those who speak spiritual knowledge with much labor but do not succeed in finding it fail through either the lack of faith, perhaps because of their stupidity and jealousy that they have in mind to attack those who possess knowledge, just as the people of old once attacked Moses. We can rightly apply then the passage in Scripture which says that some men tried to force their way upon the mountain. The Amorites dwelling in the mountain came out and wounded them. For inevitably those who put on a show of holiness for self-display not only fail to achieve anything through their false piety, but also are wounded by their conscience. He who pursues spiritual knowledge for the sake of display and fails to attain it should not envy his neighbor or be cast down. On the contrary, as commanded, let him observe the preparation for Sabbath in some nearby place. Though the practice of the virtues by working hard with his body, he will prepare his soul for that knowledge.